right, guys.
All right.
So, welcome everybody to the first episode of the Spare Room Talks. This is Kareem, Amin, and our guest, Mr. Jesus,
Thanks for
in
having
the
me,
building.
guys. Appreciate it.
Welcome on board. Welcome on board.
Man.
Cool. So, oh man, we have so many questions for you.
Yeah, where do we start, right?
Fire away, guys.
Why don't we
fire
start
away.
with? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself for folks who may not know you from before?
Sure. I've worked in insurance and banking for over 10 years. Then I went on to build an insurtech startup that was in the area of Internet of Things, IoT, as they call it, as an acronym.
Yes.
Everyone loves an acronym.
Of course.
All these TLAs.
I thought we'd get into the acronyms later, but we're already
on the
in
acronyms.
acronym mode.
And then after, we did quite well that business in Ireland, UK, and Poland, and now set up an insurtech fintech hub whereby we help corporates and startups go through that journey of innovation in a faster manner. So fast track ideas, focusing on user experience because I think that's the key. At the end of the day, if you're selling a product, it's all about the user and bringing the actual insurers and banks to focus on users and startups helping them collaborate with the corporates as well, which is
Nice.
a fundamental thing.
Cool. That's actually tying in with one of the things that we were thinking about, around, there's so many startups out there that believe, partnering up with big corporates is one of the instrumental things towards their success. And that's something you guys were able to do before. So how do you actually go about, as a startup, from your experience with building WeSavvy, how do you actually go about building those relationships with big companies, especially when for them they may see, oh, that's just another startup. They hear about those every day. How do you stand out? How do you build that up?
Sure, I think as a startup, you have to really be a knowledge expert in your area, right? You have to be obsessed about what you're building. So by being obsessive about what you're building, you're going to know more than anyone else on that subject matter. So when you get an opportunity to actually speak to a corporate, you have to showcase that you know that. So that's what we're very good at. We knew insurance quite well, we knew banking quite well, and we knew customer experience. Back then, a lot of people talked about products, but we talked about moving from a world of a product to a world of an experience. And then, of course, when we start speaking like that and showcasing the value, they pay attention. And I think that's the differentiator of a startup by being obsessive about what they want to deliver and knowing that inside out. You're able to stand out because as a corporate, you focus on the many things. So to become a domain expert in a particular subject matter is harder.
But is that relatively easy to do if you're a startup, starting off? You may not necessarily have the resources or capabilities outside your own personal experience, and if you're going to a corporate, it's always hard. And I've noticed myself, a lot of people who are trying to build their own startup around support from a corporate company in some way, shape, or form. There's always the question of, all right, what's in it for the company? Experience. All right, we have all these people just working, all these years of experience pooled together, or we have all these resources pooled together. So would you not think that's a bit tricky to do? Because obviously your own experience is very valuable, but then when you're reaching out to a corporate company, where did you, I guess, find this, I guess, the silver lining where you're able to offer them something that they may not have there?
I know what you're saying, I mean, so if you're a startup, you have to understand what's your value proposition, right? If you don't understand your value proposition, you're already losing. So if you understand the value proposition, you're able to say to a corporate, this is what I can do better than you. Very, very clearly. Articulate
better
that.
than them even.
Better than them. You have to showcase that you can do that better than them. Because they're going to say, why should I even invite you to have this conversation? So you have to be like, I can do this better than you. I can help your business evolve and be very clear on how you're going to help that business get a 3x or 10x, whatever you're selling to them in terms of returns. So it's all about capital or productivity, right? It was the value you really give to that corporate and being able to say, this is my value proposition. Once you implement this solution or this offering or service, then you're going to get this return. Very, very clear on that. And by being able to articulate that and say, that's what my product does initially, you're going to get the buy-in from the corporate. And then you have to deliver, of course.
Of course.
That's a whole nother story.
Exactly.
But hold on. So take us back. Like, how do you, naturally a startup would, they would do all the due diligence and they would, go deep on their domain. But how do you, let's say you're prepared, how do you actually get access to those contacts when you don't even necessarily have access to them at the start?
100%. So initially, you go through your network, right? There's this great book that is all about the network, right? The power of that. The idea is just a percentage of it. Anything is all
Yeah.
about the network you can access to execute the idea. Right?
Absolutely.
Man, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's almost would you,
So first degree network is a key and start. So you reach out to that's link connection. Everyone knows
the network is more important than the idea in some cases.
100%.
Oh,
You know,
isn't that crazy?
100%. There's
More
a-
important than the idea itself.
You would
And
think
it's-
it's based on merit. If it's a good idea, we'll let you in. But you're saying there's always obviously a factor of the network.
Exactly,
as well.
and people always say that it's always
100%.
based on the people running the startup themselves, like their experience, their tendencies, and so on. But it's actually interesting that you said that. It's heavily
Yeah.
weighted towards who you know.
Yeah, but go on though.
100%. If you let's just take a step back, right? Why do you think startups in Silicon Valley do quite well? Is because that network they can access very quickly.
That's true.
So, they're going to get a network of VCs, which they can raise capital. They're going to get a network of skilled people. Some of them they actually went to college with, or they know them through some past life, and they bring them in. They say, actually, I have this cool idea. Let's do this. Automatically, they feel, okay, this is already here, but it's the power of the network that they developed, right? So even the likes of, if you go to closer to home, Trinity or the likes of Cambridge, all that, they already in college you're building a network, right?
Yeah.
And when you're starting up an idea, let's say if you have a network of experts in a particular area that all you guys are focused on.
Yeah.
When you come out of college, you're going to still be in that area, right? But then if you want to access capital, it's the exact same thing, So
Same sort of rules and
same
logic
sort of
applies.
rules and logic applies.
just
You have to
different
reach out
people.
to someone that might trust you. That say, okay, actually, I know this guy. His background checks, and he
Yeah.
brings you in. Like, so if you don't have the network, you have to have that first degree that is going to make that introduction for
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
And that's through LinkedIn. But I'm just thinking out loud as well. Like,
No, I'm
if you-
saying LinkedIn put in framework what the
Yeah.
first degree network was, because a lot of people don't understand this. What the
Literally, it did. Yeah.
first degree network is. Everyone's like, oh, what's the first degree? There's first degree, second degree, third degree, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So first degree is people that you actually had a conversation before already,
Mm-hmm.
and then second degree is one network can link you to. So a college, someone you went to college with
Yeah.
can link you to someone that they know. So that's the second degree.
a lot
So-
of people think of the first degree contacts as the first people that come to mind. The second degree contacts is a whole pool that's many times there's so many opportunities there. Many people would be aware of who their first degree contacts are, but I don't think a lot of people know who their second degree contacts are by definition.
Yeah.
And
As-
that's the beauty of the technology these days, right?
Yes.
So if you can maximize LinkedIn, people use it for different manners, but
Yeah.
I can go into your first degree. If you're my first degree connection, I can go into your network and see of that area that I'm looking to target, who do you know, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then I'll say, Kareem, I'm gonna just make an introduction. This is a good idea, and the likelihood of you is the person that mentioned that
Exactly.
making that introduction.
Exactly, and
is
like
high.
that power of network goes so far.
Yeah.
You're dead right in the sense that it's the same sort of rules that apply everywhere. It's just different people that get swapped out, but it's the same sort of rule of networks, regardless of what stage you're at.
100%.
Still works the exact same.
100%. So you start like that, and then you build like your idea, and then you start getting the initial traction, right? And then that network brings you to elements, to a certain stage. Then you have to perform. So we use our first degree networker in the industry to get initial meetings and the connections. But when you want to go global, you just have to showcase good likes of events and try to get yourself in front of as many people as possible. Like
Yeah.
that's when becoming an expert in your domain is key.
Yeah,
So what we decided to do is like, okay, we want to be a speaker at events or be in panels and really showcase our knowledge on stage. So it's more scalable because you can speak to
Okay,
40,
yeah.
50 domain people in the room.
And the psychology of even being on stage,
as well.
is already like I
This
got
is
to
a
talk to that guy later, or that
trustworthy
girl later.
person. Exactly. It's like positioning yourself in that as a go-to person for reference. That's actually really interesting that you say that, because
100%.
I feel that I completely agree with you there. When someone's starting off, the best thing you can do is just be a very sort of I guess almost like an expert of sorts for a very specific field. And you starting off like that and through your network and so on, in your network's mind, you can name like 10 people, 20, 50, 100 people that you would be the go-to for anything insurance related or insurtech related in general. But a lot of people may have that knowledge, may have that experience, working in a company for a lot of years, just out of college with their own experience, whatever it is, they have that knowledge there. But I'd love for you to sort of like dig in a little deeper on how would you go from knowing yourself that yes, you know a lot of information on this specific field to actually positioning yourself as a go-to source of information, you know? Like a personal brand of sorts.
I tend to believe that it goes hand in hand, right?
Okay.
So if you're domain expert on the matter you're speaking to, automatically you build a personal brand.
Yeah.
A personal brand comes with the conferences. Like at the end of the day, people actually knew we have Hesus. So they were like, okay, the Wasabi guy is Hesus. So that was kind of building that personal
Interchangeable
brand,
almost, yeah.
in a sense. But then there's a stage that you have to start dissociating yourself from the brand. So you say this is actually a team. There's as other people involved.
Yeah.
But people automatically associated me with the brand itself, right? And when they talked about Internet of Things, how you pull the data from connected self, connected home, connected car, how I actually showcase the image, which is very, you have to really, really put a picture in a very clear manner so it can actually sink in some people's heads. They were like, okay, that's the guy that was talking about that,
Yeah.
So whenever they're thinking about that, they say, okay, that's that guy, So, yeah, even being able to tell a story is very key as a startup,
Yes.
Because when you get those meetings, when your network facilitated the meeting at the end, right? You have to be able to tell the story in a succinct manner. A lot of people talk about the elevator pitch, that 30-second or, fourth floor, wherever you go.
I saw a video on LinkedIn the other day where someone was literally in an elevator.
Elevator, exactly.
I think it was in...
Literally.
I forgot the conference's name. But it was in a conference and it was like literally like...
An elevator.
It's over in 20 seconds. You just have to talk to them.
That's actually sick.
But it comes back to being able to articulate the message, and that comes with polishing it a lot. And if you know what you're selling, you're able to convey that very quickly.
And you need to know who you're selling to as well.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking to person A or person B, it's not just a matter of, oh, I memorized my lines, here's my pitch, are you ready? It's more like, no, let's get to know this person A first. And then once you get to know them, they're like, okay, so think of it this way. It's kind of like this, but for this, I feel like many times half of the pitch is not from you, but rather from the other person. What do they care about? And based on that, how am I going to tell that story with them? But I want to cycle back.
I want to just
okay, you go.
Lean on that because I think that's a very interesting point. So as human beings, at the end of the day, you're talking to one person to another, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be able to understand their interests and their behaviors. Coming back to behavioral economics and behavioral analytics, you have to understand what will actually get their interest, right? So if you tell them something that's going to help someone else, my interest is gone automatically.
That's right.
That guy, if you're going to help...
Good for you.
Right? Tell me something that's going to help me make me look good myself.
Exactly.
In front of my boss, in front of
People
whoever.
are selfish by nature. Like you have to take that into account.
Exactly.
But do you agree? Because we're really big on like personal brands and using that as an enabler to actually building the company brands. I don't know why. I can't really explain it. I just feel like we just keep noticing this time and time again. It's a type of, I guess it's like a format that's easy to understand, like or something that's easy to identify with. I'm getting to know another person, and through that person I'm getting to know the overall brand. So, and that was actually one of our questions as well. Like, would you say somebody should be people who are building out companies should be working on their personal brands as well? Or do you think it really is case by case?
I think people should definitely work on their personal brand, right? Jack might put it the best way possible. I got to steal from him now. I think a lot.
He retired.
Did he retire or no?
He retired.
He's thinking about it.
Okay,
he's thinking about it. But if you're developing anything, you have to appeal to someone's emotions, right?
Yes.
And that's one of the things that robots
100%.
cannot do quite well now is like, appeal to someone's emotions, right? And by developing a personal brand, being able to put yourself in that person's shoes, right?
Yeah.
You can, create empathy. And I think a personal brand should be really about that, showcasing that you care and why do you care, right?
Yeah.
And that comes very naturally then if you really care. right?
Surprisingly, yeah.
If you don't care, then it comes off as fake. And I think
Yeah,
personal
yeah,
brands,
true.
there's gimmicks and there's all the stuff we know now on social media you can do, but you get found out, right? You
Yeah.
know, at the end
That's
of
the
the
thing.
day,
Technology is getting smarter, but I think people are getting even smarter than the technology. You know?
yeah, you get found out because
That's
there's
it,
a lot of people say, okay, I'm going to learn these lines and, this is going to be my line. And then when they get on stage or, they get caught off with some questions like, on the fly, they don't know what they're saying because,
Yeah, like, wait, what?
Yeah, well,
This wasn't in the script. You got to stick to the script.
Exactly.
No, but touching on that, actually, like just other than the fact of like
authenticity. That's why I wanted the heat on authenticity.
Exactly. Yeah. No. But like actually, just touching on that there. Other than the fact that like it's important for people to know what it is that they're offering and being able to tailor that to specific people. People have very high like bullshit detectors. They can
100%.
read straight through
100%.
whether or not like you're trying to sell them something, you're trying to do this and that, and I'm actually curious to hear from your own experience because obviously you faced something like that. How did you navigate knowing that all right, I'm trying to ultimately get something from this person, but I'm trying to come across in a way where I have to take into account what's in it for them, but also not phrase it like, I'm a sleazy sort of salesman that's trying to rip them off,
Yeah,
So
well,
it's, how did you go about that yourself?
So the start was challenging. Like we started in the insurance space, and we were like saying this is what our idea was. Like so, we were all about the idea. It's gonna be fantastic. It's gonna change the industry. The way you go. Aspirational stuff, right? And then we quickly because when you're doing the idea, you have to come back to the persona, right? Who is your ideal buyer? You know, so you have to know who you're selling, and
Shout out HubSpot.
Shout out HubSpot. Drop it in there.
Plug in.
So who your ideal persona? So at the end of the day, you have to know, what are the interests, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't sell it and say this is what this is going to do for you, regardless of what the product does, because everyone gets caught up in features. This is every single thing. But how does it benefit the person in front of you?
Fast.
How is he going to make exactly twice as fast, 3 times as fast? How they're making them look good? I think that is ultimately about that.
How you're gonna make them look good.
Look good. It's all about that. How are you gonna make them look good?
And I mean that's even something that we were talking about, like even earlier today. I think this is something you're currently working on, where based on who you're currently speaking with, you want to make sure that this is fully about them and fully personalized to them. Would you agree? As opposed to sticking to like a static deck or a static approach.
100%. That's why the deck is only a start, right? And then you have to be able, if you know what you're talking, really you should be able to adapt. So for example, for us, when we're talking to the actuarial department, we're very, very key to what it offers the actuarial department. Talking to the underwriting department, or it offers the underwriting department. If you're offering to claims, talking to someone in claims, what is offered in claims. So you have to tailor your pitch, and then of course, coming back to the features, right? You should look at the feature. Okay, what is this person is gonna get? So that's what they really want to know about it.
Yes.
And then, but talk about feature for their what's the benefit, right? So it's easy for someone to sync the benefit than the cool stuff that you're building. So what's the benefit for that guy, for this bird or that girl, and be very, very clear.
So speaking their language, essentially, just saying, all right, what's in it for you, like.
Exactly, and that's a very good point of speaking their language, because coming back to the domain expertise, if you talk in your own language and
get out of here.
I can see. Just imagine that, like, if you try and talk in your language,
I don't say that in terms of the language itself, right, guys?
Oh man.
No, I'm talking about is, for example, you have to come in and startups, they have their own terminology, right?
Oh man.
And everyone gets caught up in the way they want to sell your product. But you have to come in and talk the business language that they actually use.
Yeah, the metrics that they care about.
Exactly. They care. For example, it could be NPS scores, like Net Promoter Score, all that kind of stuff. So if they say to you NPS, you should know what NPS is, right? You don't have time to Google and they were like,
what is NPS, by the way?
But you know what? Like, one thing that that we're learning as well is actually highlighting it's probably the same for you in Google, but like one of the things that we've learned is always highlight the cost of inaction. What's the cost? Here's the benefits in your own metrics, in your own language. Okay, great. So so far so good, but kind of like the tension point or not even the tension point, but just the clarification is, here's what happens if you choose to do nothing, you know?
Yeah.
And ideally, being able to actually quantify that as well. Okay, it's gonna be, you know, whatever. If cost of inaction is 100K, 200K, 1 million, whatever. You know what I
100%.
mean?
People,
Especially when you look at it like over time as well.
100%.
Putting a number on it makes all the difference.
Definitely. You have to put the numbers on all this because at the end of the day, they have to go and get budget. So if
Yeah.
you don't have
True,
a number,
true.
they
And speaking of speaking their language, when you talk to them about, oh, what budget is this going to come out from? Because they're listening to you and they like what they're hearing, half of their brain, and then the other half, I imagine, is,
thinking
fuck,
numbers.
where am I going to get this number?
Exactly, it's
Where am I
thinking
going to get
numbers.
this budget? Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
why you have to
yeah.
get. They always talk all the time about the evangelist, right? So find the evangelist within a company that has that has a budget.
The ambassador, CEO, the ambassadors, basically.
The
Yeah.
ambassadors, right? But
The gatekeepers.
on a
Yeah,
more serious note, like people buy, is that pain of loss? So people buy for two things.
Yeah.
They're gonna make them feel good. The optimist people, the hopeful, or the fear, the FOMO,
Exactly.
right?
I would say most of them buy for fear. Would you agree?
Exactly,
For B2B.
exactly. Fear is the main thing.
Yeah.
Especially if they say my competitor gets the hands on this and I don't, my
There
job
you
could
go.
be on the line, etc.
Exactly.
So,
and in most cases, that's actually what would cause people to actually take action. To like go out, do something that they could consider, out of their stereotypical route, like status quo, and go out of the way purely because you've highlighted that. All right, things are okay now. You're staying afloat now, but there's this thing around the corner. I mean, you
Exactly.
gotta. So just highlighting that is
Yeah.
huge.
And I had a question
100%.
tied to that as well. Do you believe that there's such a thing as building something that's too innovative for the market or too early for the market? Or is this just a case of, product market fit?
no, sometimes you could be too early. We were too early to the market.
Yeah.
We started in 2015. I think we're 2 years ahead of the market easy. We're talking
How do you
about-
realize how do you consciously realize, shit, I'm building something that's way too early?
because when you talk to the people and they say, yeah, I love this, but at the moment it's not a priority.
Okay. But
That's what you know.
Yeah.
I really want to clarify though, like, do you believe that there's a difference between, okay, quote unquote, being too early for the market versus this is not a solution for us right now?
Yes, if you look like other startups, there's a lot of examples around this area, like Flipkarts and the Instacarts and Airbnbs. It's not new; it's timing, right? Like Revolut is doing well because of timing. The likes of Lending Club back then did well as well because of timing. It's just like
Yes.
there was a crash. People were like, okay, I have to rent out my house. Let's go with Airbnb. I need some extra cash. If there was no crash, right? I might say I don't want a stranger in my house. I'm cool, right? All of a sudden, I forget about that fear of bringing a stranger to my house. Like, I'm like, I need cash, extra bucks.
Do you think that was as big of like? Do you think that was something really important for Airbnb, the crash and people wanting to make extra income?
100%. I think that's a very, very good business case there, because if someone is afloat is okay, they might not need the extra cash the Airbnb is providing, right? But if they haven't the pain, that early adopters is just speeded up so fast that then you get the volume now that you can go to an investor and say, oh, look at all these people renting the house, right?
Exactly. But surely when Airbnb was starting, they don't think, all right, there's a crash coming up. Let's say, like it. There's definitely a huge element of luck there.
They said
you can't really see it coming.
They said that they rebranded a couple of times.
Yeah.
That means they were able to withstand.
Rebranded. I love that word. We've rebranded. Weren't they selling like cereal boxes at one point?
Yeah.
Literally, like
To raise money,
to raise. That was pretty sick.
Yeah, and it worked. I think it worked really well because I think their background was in graphic design, so
Something
Okay.
crazy.
oh, they did that all day. What about, so right now, what's the, like, where do you go when you were building something, and not even a couple of months and a couple of years, then you realize, wait a minute, I'm too early for the market. And this is obviously something you've done like firsthand. Like, how do you even deal with something like that? Like, where do you go from there?
What we do is what startups do. They're agile, so that's what you say. Okay, so what does the market really want, right? So back to when you're talking to all these people, you gather feedback all the time. So
Yeah.
that's why I think 90% is actually listening in the meetings, and then you talk with 10%,
Yeah.
because it's market research you're doing when you're speaking to those people as well, right?
Absolutely.
So every time you jotting down, and then you're gonna get a pattern. You know,
Okay.
once
Trend, yeah.
you're gonna get a trend that you speak to a couple of people, they're gonna say this is really what I have the most pain on, and they're coming back to solve the main pain point because
Yeah.
sometimes you can be building something amazing, but no one is feeling the pain, right?
Yeah,
So
that's true.
you know, it's all about
Which essentially just makes it useless.
exactly for that particular. That's what makes it that you early, right?
Regardless of how pretty it is or how much work you put in,
They're
it's
not feeling the
useless.
pain, right? They're not feeling the pain. So then what we did was a position, you know, start to speak. They said you say you pivot and then you give what the market wants.
Yeah.
So we ended up building a wellness solution. So
Okay.
so the market wanted wellness, and we pivoted the product into a more of a wellness product and less of an IoT product.
Right.
You know, so that's
Okay,
that's what we did. So we focus on a niche is within IoT.
Yeah.
Which was something at the time that was just growing and gathering a lot of attention. So you sort of jumped on that train and using a very similar technology.
Exactly. Was it wearables? Like wearables, you can use it for several things, but we wanted to use it for wellness and promote wellness, and that's where the budget was
Yeah.
and the appetite was. People were able to conceive the idea faster as well.
Yes.
But if you're saying that okay, you can use all the data from Spotify, you can use data from social media, you can use data from other public, you know, areas, and you can gather this. Create this holistic picture that it can help you do a lot of things with your business. It doesn't connect, but if you say, okay, I'm going to build a wellness solution that you're going to sell and you're going to promote wellness within
Yes.
a company, and it fits in with the CSR initiatives.
So noticing trends and then just shifting accordingly.
Definitely.
Just as long as the core technology you're able to apply to these same trends, that's what you have to do to
That's
stay afloat.
that's key.
And that's part of what being a startup is about. You know, like you have
Exactly.
this, like you said, like this proprietary technology or solution in general,
Yeah.
and from there you'll be able to you know amend it based on where the demand is. And it's crazy because sometimes the demand doesn't make sense. It just is. The market is what it is, and based on that, you just have to follow. You know
Yeah.
what that is. Yeah.
100%. Because if what way we looked at it is holistically, like so, it's an opportunity to actually shift the needle within the industry, right? But which would have been way better for the industry, right? Because if they embraced IoT as a whole, let's say picking a wearable, and the wearable could be used for several products, not only one. Just give you a context. The wearable could be used for a life, health, motor, you know, home,
Elderly. Oh, yeah.
all
whole
at
thing.
once. And they missed the boat. Is not missing the boat, but if you apply it to only one single area, and then you're trying to then create a new business case for another area, you know, it's gonna take a lot of meetings,
Yeah.
a lot of restructuring the product, etc. If you thought about just a layering on top of the whole business and experience, all of a sudden you have an advantage, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Bars. That's good. That's good. No, but so okay. So
Cheers right there.
so you sold the business now.
Now, yes, but the business going on, you know, minority shareholder now in the business because we
Well, what does that feel like? You know, you're still involved, but you know, it's not your baby anymore.
Yeah, that's.
But are you still involved though? Or?
Tech, yes, of course. You know, from a guidance standpoint, I'm still leading the area in terms of
Guardian angel. Yeah.
connected. You know, so I'm a bit of a futurist, as they say. You know, I look
Yeah.
at trends, and you know, and so I still help the business visualize where it could go in the
Yeah.
future, which is key, because it also keeps me relevant, and, you know, up to speed
Yes.
because I keep researching the area, right? So my area of expertise is connected finance. So
Right.
I love it. That was only a particular segment of connected finance.
Yes.
But we can layer it on top to several segments of connected finance, right?
So same
yeah.
sort of logic applies.
Same sort of logic applies. You know, if you go into banking, I can visualize how I can use wearable data for banking products, right?
Okay. Do you have an example off the top of your mind?
Of course, you know.
Oh, this is really interesting. You know.
Yeah, so you can
Of course,
use it.
bro.
Yeah. Come on, man. You know I got this.
You can use it for savings. Like, so one of the examples that we gave back then, like depending on your heart rate that you maintain, you can adjust your savings interest rate, right? So that's a very interesting.
Wait,
one,
for
like,
banking.
Yeah, you can use
What's in it for the banks?
your longevity, right? So if you
Oh, you're gonna live longer, so you're gonna pay them more.
exactly.
Whoa, man.
Wow. Well,
But this is things like
Is this a real thing?
it's a real thing. It's ahead of the industry a bit, like you know. But
That's like 20 years, man.
I was in 20 years, but it could be 5.
It's like the bank is gonna give you better interest rates because you'll live longer, so they'll actually. Man,
And they can tie that up to your credit history as well if they want, like, But then again,
That's insane.
Man, we can talk about this forever. We're almost out of time though. I want to make sure that we understand, like, where can people find you right now? What are you working on these days?
sure, you can find me on all social media accounts like HESUSCI, so he's a CI,
Hesus CI.
on Twitter, LinkedIn, the Tron at gmail.com as well, and you find me there that way directly. These days it's all about innovation, and fintech. So it's about going into corporations and working with startups and saying, how do you bridge this gap, right?
Yeah.
So corporations is helping them innovate from inside out, because it's about changing culture. Because one thing we found out with Savvy is like, they want to innovate, but they haven't built that culture of innovation, being comfortable
Yes.
with failure, being comfortable with pivoting, saying, okay, we learned from failure, right? No one is comfortable saying, I learned from a failure, right? They're like, okay, Jesus, that budget is gone.
Slightly different way of
Slightly
looking
different
at it.
way of looking at it.
Surprise.
Surprise, exactly. Boo!
It was a great learning. It was a great learning.
And the startups is like what we're doing today. Like, how do they go from accelerate them from 12 months trying to talk to a corporate and trying to implement the project with a corporate, and we can say this is what you could plan, and you can put it in 3 months into execution, because we learned so much working across Europe and US that we can accelerate the pilot, the proof of concept. So I'm not a big fan of pilots. I call them proof of concepts. And when you finish that proof of concept, it should go into business as usual into the company, and then you start layering on top of that company, right? So that's why we help startups to think like that. It's not only a pilot.
Yeah.
It's going to be a proof of
It's a
concept.
proof of concept that you're only going to be building on layers and layers.
Is there layers and layers, and that proof of concept should lead you to the business as usual into that company straight away, right?
Beautiful.
And that's what we're working on.
Jesus, my man, thank you so much for your time.
Always a pleasure.
Here.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
First of many, for sure.